So we're looking at performance task 6. Let's take a look at this first problem. Which diagram represents a relation in which each member of the domain corresponds to only one member of its range? And I think when we were trying to do this in class, what a lot of people struggled with was actually just understanding the question. And so we talked about this strategy in class where if you don't understand the question, what you need to do is go through the multiple choice answers and see which one is different from the rest, okay? I don't mean different like it looks different, like different as in it gives us a different result. So we know that actually they were talking about whether or not it's a function, but I just don't know if the question is asking is it a function or not. So the first thing we want to do is define what a function is, and we defined this several different ways in class. We said a function um, has one x value going to one y value. We also said that a function passes the vertical line test. And we also said no repeating x values. So these are all the different ways we defined a function in class and how we can identify one. So what you want to do is go through each multiple choice answer and let's determine whether or not they are functions. This first one is called a mapping. It shows a relation and we want to determine if it's a function or not. And if we take a look at this one, we said one x value only goes to one y value. But if we take a look at this x value where x is equal to 0, we notice that 0 goes to both 5 and 7. So automatically this is not a function. So I know my first answer choice is not a function, and what you want to do now is check the other three answer choices. The other three answer choices are graphs, so what you want to do is use the vertical line test. We said the vertical line test is when you draw a vertical line, or in your case, when you roll your pencil over the graph, it will never touch your graph in more than one place, okay? So if it does, then it fails the vertical line test and it's not a function. So what you want to do is go ahead and test all three of these, see if it's a function or not. Write it somewhere above. Make sure you always write down all your work and then compare which answer is different from the rest. If you get two answers that are not functions and two answers that are functions, it means you messed up somewhere. Okay, so go and take a look. Pause the video here if you need to take some time to answer this question. If not, let's move on to our next question. The second question says, Fred's teacher gave the class a quadratic function f of x equals to 4x squared plus 16x plus 9. State two different methods Fred could use to solve the equation f of x equals to 0. Multiple ways we can solve a quadratic equation. The first way is by using the quadratic formula. We went over this in class. This is my preferred method because it works every single time. You don't need to remember any strategies because the quadratic formula is given to you in the back of your Regents packet. The second way is by factoring. Factoring is a very quick way if you're good at it, but if you're not, stick to the quadratic formula. The third way, completing the square. This way a lot of people struggle with, so we're not really going to go through it. And the fourth way is graphically. Okay. And then, so using one of your methods stated in part A, solve f of x equals to 0 for x to the nearest 10th. So we're going to practice using quadratic formula. We're going to practice using the quadratic formula today. If you don't remember it, I'm going to write it down right now, and I want you to copy it into your paper. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of, and this is going to get messy, but it's okay, b squared minus 4ac, and this is really difficult to do on my laptop, so it's kind of messy, all over 2a. Okay, and our next step after we do this is to always identify our A, B, and C. So step 1, we can even write it down, identify A, B, C values. Okay, so our A value is going to be 4. It's always the coefficient of the x squared. Our B value is going to be 16, and our C value is going to be 9. All right, step 2 is to plug in. ABC into your quadratic formula. So what you're going to do right now is copy over the quadratic formula. And as you're copying it over, instead of writing the letters, what you want to do is replace the letters with parentheses. Okay, this is messing up. All right, so x equals negative b, and instead of b, we're putting parentheses, plus or minus the square root of b squared, and instead of b, we're putting parentheses, minus 4a, and instead of a, we're putting parentheses, c, and instead of c, we're putting parentheses, all over 2 times a. And once you have this set up, the rest of it is pretty easy because we plug in b, that's 16. The next letter is also b, that's 16. The next letter after the 4 is an a, and we get another 4 here. The letter after a is c, and that's going to be 9. And in our denominator, we get 2a, and a is 4, so all we're doing is plugging in the numbers, okay? So that was step 2, plug in a, b, c. Step 3 is going to be simplify the parentheses, okay? So we're working just with the parentheses. We want to get rid of the parentheses. So I have x equals to, well, here's the parentheses that I can get rid of. Negative parentheses 16, you got this, it's just negative 16. But we can always use our calculator to check. So negative 16, I don't know what to do with the plus or minus, so bring it down. I don't know what to do with the square root, so bring it down. But look at all the parentheses in here. I can get rid of all those parentheses. I'm going to do it all at once. So I got parentheses 16, close parentheses squared, minus 4, parentheses 4, parentheses 9. So you see what we're really trying to do is just, make this a little bit easier to read. And I get 112. And then in your denominator, you have 2 parentheses 4, which is really just 2 times 4, and we get 8. Okay, so that was step 3, simplify the parentheses. Step 4 is going to be it's going to be find the square root. So we're up to here now. In your calculator, let's find the square root of 112. So square root of 112. That's going to be this crazy decimal, and it's okay that we get a decimal because we have a calculator. I'm going to copy the entire decimal over, all right? So x is equal to negative 16 plus or minus 10.583000524. All over 8. So, nothing complicated here. Yeah, we have to write a lot of numbers, but that's okay. Step 5, separate into 2 equations because I don't know how to do plus or minus, so you need to make sure that you use 2 different equations. So your first equation is going to be the plus one. So let's make this a little smaller. And your second equation will be the minus. So always we have 2 equations. Usually when we find roots, we do have 2 solutions. That's why we have 2 equations here. So we said the first one is plus and the second one is minus. And from here, you're just plugging each one into your calculator. It's a fraction bar, so what you want to do is use your the fraction function on your calculator. You do that by pressing alpha, y equals, and then enter. So now I have a fraction bar. I'm going to do the plus one first, so negative 16 plus 10.583000524. And on the bottom, we have divided by 8. And let's enter, and I get negative 0.677. If we go back up and read the problem, they asked us to round to the nearest 10th place. The 6 is in my 10th place, so what you want to do is look at the number after that. The number after that is a 7. And the saying goes, 5 or more raise the score. So 5 or more, meaning if it's more than 5, we need to raise the score, raise the number. So negative 0. Our 6 gets raised to a 7 and we drop everything after that. That's one of my solutions. All right, the second one, again, alpha, y equals, and we get a fraction, negative 16. And this time we want, sorry, that should be a negative 16. Minus, instead of plus, 10 point. Negative 16, oh my gosh, this is not working. Okay, alpha, y equals, negative 16 minus 10.58300,524 all over 8. So we get x is equal to negative 3.322. And now in our tenths place is this 3 over here. So we look at the number afterwards, which is a 2. So it's 5 or more, raise the score, 4 or less, let it rest. Since this is less than 4, we're going to let it rest, meaning don't do anything to it. So the 3 stays as a 3 and we drop everything afterwards. So that's how we can use the quadratic formula to help us solve quadratic equations.